welcome to this edition of the Head to Head Podcast. I'm your host, Cam McKinney, and this is episode number 135 of the podcast. And in this edition of the podcast, I'm talking about the Patriots' options of the quarterback position next season, because right now, we all know that Cam Newton is not the answer. After Tom Brady left for the Buccaneers, all the rumors were the Patriots were going to go with Jarrett Stidham at the quarterback position. Instead, they went with Cam Newton, who with 2 weeks left has 5 passing touchdowns and 11 interceptions. The worst for a starting quarterback since Trent Dilfer in 1995 when he threw 4 touchdowns in 16 starts. So once again, in the second offseason in a row, all the questions about the Patriots will be about the quarterback position, whether Bill Belichick likes it or not. And there are 4 type of quarterbacks the Patriots can go after this offseason. Number 1 is an established veteran who is without a doubt walking into the franchise as the franchise quarterback. And that would be a guy like Detroit Lions quarterback Matthew Stafford. I mean, to me, that would be the best possible outcome for the Patriots, to get a guy like Matthew Stafford. And to get exactly Matthew Stafford, I mean, he's been with the Detroit Lions. He's been to the postseason with them. He throws for a ton of yards. This is what the Patriots need. They need a guy who can throw the football like Matthew Stafford. And he would walk in as the franchise quarterback for at least the next 3 or 4 years. This is the best possible outcome for the Patriots at the quarterback position. And my long shot would be Aaron Rodgers. Yes, I would love Aaron Rodgers to be a Patriot. He's putting up career numbers with the Packers as we speak. It's probably not going to happen. The Packers are probably going to keep him at the position for at least the next 2 years while Jordan Love develops. But I can dream, and that would be the best dream. Now, the issue with Stafford and Rodgers is that the Patriots would have to put up a ton of money to acquire both of these players. And we know they're probably not willing to do that, especially at the quarterback position. This was a team that let Tom Brady walk, for crying out loud. So I don't see them paying up a ton of money to get a franchise quarterback like Matthew Stafford or Aaron Rodgers. But if they were able to acquire either of those two, that would be the best possible outcome for Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots. He wouldn't have to answer questions about who the quarterback would be for at least the next 3 or 4 years, and they would probably become instant contenders because Bill Belichick is one of the best head coaches of all time. And of course, he would be able to contend for Super Bowls with a Matthew Stafford type, or of course an Aaron Rodgers type. These are MVP caliber quarterbacks. Rodgers more than Stafford, but I think Belichick could unlock Stafford's second act of his career and help him get to a Super Bowl. If I were the Patriots, this is the path I would go on to get my next quarterback. Get an established guy like a Matthew Stafford or an Aaron Rodgers. That would be, again, the best possible outcome. Now, the second type of quarterback the Patriots could go after is a quarterback who is likely to lose their starting job after this season. And the perfect example of that is Carson Wentz with the Philadelphia Eagles. I think Adam Schefter can report all he wants how the Eagles want to keep Carson Wentz, but the only reason they want to keep Carson Wentz is because of money. I think Carson Wentz is definitely going to end up leaving the Philadelphia Eagles, and I think the Patriots would be a pretty good fit for Carson Wentz. And if you don't think Bill Belichick can resurrect his career, then how highly of Belichick do you really think? I mean, this is a guy who once won 11 football games with Matt Castle at the position. I think Carson Wentz would be a major upgrade over Cam Newton. But the problem is that, again, it would go back to money with Belichick. I don't know that the Patriots and Bill Belichick would be willing to put all of that money into resurrecting the career of Carson Wentz. It's a lot of money, and you're paying him like a franchise quarterback, and he might not be that at this time. The counter argument to that is Carson Wentz is still really young. If you can resurrect his career, you might have the next franchise quarterback for the next 7 to 8 years. And if he goes back to being that MVP caliber talent, it would totally be worth it for the New England Patriots to acquire Carson Wentz if he's the Carson Wentz of old. Another player to consider is a guy who is an old friend of the New England Patriots, Jimmy Garoppolo. No one knows what direction the 49ers are going to go with the quarterback position. Garoppolo has been hurt for most of this year, and maybe the 49ers won't move on from Garoppolo because of his play, but because of his injuries. He can no longer be relied upon as their franchise quarterback. They have a contending team. They need a more reliable quarterback. But the Patriots, who are without a reliable quarterback, might be more willing to take the risk and name Jimmy Garoppolo as their starter. We know Belichick's feelings towards Jimmy Garoppolo. This wouldn't be my ideal fit, but I could definitely see this playing out with Garoppolo coming back and being the starter for at least the next 2 to 3 years with the Patriots. Then you have Alex Smith with the Washington football team. There is no question in my mind that he is not the long-term answer at the quarterback position for Washington, so they might move on from him, and he would be a really good bridge quarterback for the Patriots. And the other one I think is a long shot, but I'd be willing to take the risk to get Mitchell Trubisky and see if you can help his career. He is a pretty accurate quarterback. Again, I think he's a pretty good bridge quarterback. He's a quarterback manager. He manages the games. I think he would be a good fit with the Patriots, and I think the Patriots could easily win 10 plus games if they have good talent around Mitchell Trubisky. Trubisky to me would be the perfect bridge quarterback while you go out and draft another player. He's not your long-term answer because I don't think Mitchell Trubisky is going to ever live up to being drafted that high. But I think as a bridge for a team like the Patriots, he would work way better than Cam Newton is working right now. The third option is to acquire a backup and make him the starter. I think the candidates that everyone's talking about is a guy like Marcus Mariota, who had a really good game last week. I like the player. I mean, he's a guy who you wouldn't have to give up a lot to get, and he is the perfect guy to be a bridge quarterback for the Patriots, and maybe he's young enough where he could be your answer at the position for at least the next 5 or 6 years. Another guy I'm thinking about that no one else seems to consider for the Patriots is Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston went to the Saints to be the backup so that when Drew Brees goes down, he gets to play quarterback. Then Drew Brees went down and then went to Taysom Hill. I think you could get Jameis Winston at an affordable price this offseason, a little more than the $1 million you're giving to Cam Newton. Would I give Jameis Winston $5 million to throw 30 touchdowns and 30 picks for the Patriots? Absolutely, because I think they would win more games with Jameis Winston throwing for 30 touchdowns than they're winning with Cam Newton throwing for 5. That's how I feel about Jameis Winston. I would definitely take that risk because it would be the type of risk the Patriots love. It would be a low salary risk because Winston would be at that point of his career where we thought Newton was. He'd be wanting to prove to the league that he's still a starting quarterback, and I think Winston has more talent left in him than Cam Newton does at this point. I think that would be the type of quarterback I would want the Patriots to go after. Give Jameis Winston 1 year, $5 million, throw 30 touchdowns, 30 interceptions, and you might absolutely win 10 plus football games. And another guy is the ultimate bridge quarterback, Ryan Fitzpatrick. I mean, he started for the Dolphins this past year. For the beginning of the year, he looked really good. Then the Dolphins moved on and went to Tua as their starter. Like Fitzpatrick, that's what he does. He plays well enough where you think he could actually be your starter, and then he begins to throw a ton of interceptions. He is the ultimate bridge quarterback, and the Patriots might be in need of a bridge quarterback if they cannot secure their long-term answer. He's already been with the other teams in the AFCs, the Bills, the Jets, and the Dolphins. He might as well end up a New England Patriot, at least for a year or two. The fourth option is probably my least favorite option for the position. Yes, obviously the Patriots could go out and draft the next franchise quarterback. My main issue with this is Bill Belichick's draft track record these past few seasons. He has not hit on draft picks. Yes, you can give him credit for drafting Brady at the position. You can give him credit for drafting Jimmy Garoppolo at the position. But lately, he's been really bad at drafting quality players. And oh, by the way, he just drafted Jarrett Stidham, who despite Cam Newton playing really bad, he still won't put Jarrett Stidham in a meaningful football game to start. So why would I want him to go out and draft another guy unless it was a no-brainer like a Trevor Lawrence, and the Patriots won't be drafting high enough to get a guy like that. You also have the problem of whether or not your young quarterback you draft will be ready to play right away, and this is a Patriots team that needs an immediate fix at the quarterback position, and to draft a guy and give him N'Keal Harry might not be enough talent around a young quarterback to put up some stellar numbers. This is not the ideal team for a young quarterback to become the franchise quarterback right now. I don't think they're at that point yet. I would rather them go out and get a veteran like a Matthew Stafford, or again, a backup, turn him into a starter, or get a starter who's about to lose his job. My last option is to draft a young quarterback and name him the starter, because I don't think the Patriots will be drafting high enough to get one of a high enough caliber to win football games with this team next year. And no matter what they do at this position, do not tell me that bringing back Cam Newton is an option, because I think that would be waving the white flag for next season. No Patriots fan would be excited for next year knowing that Cam Newton will get another opportunity to start. I hear this all the time, that there's no talent around Cam Newton. Look at a guy like James White. James White had 72 catches last season. He is one of the best catching running backs in all of football, and this year he's down to 42 catches. You cannot tell me that James White went from a star running back to a mediocre one, and that's what Cam Newton is doing. He is turning your star players into looking like mediocre ones. There are games where you forget James White is even a member of the New England Patriots, and I put all of that blame on Cam Newton. He is not good at passing the football. They have options. Yes, they have no tight end, but look at all their running back options. They had at one point James White, Rex Burkhead, Sony Michel, Damian Harris. They should win more football games if they had a quality quarterback. Yes, the receivers are not ideal. Edelman is aging. N'Keal Harry is not living up to the hype, but you cannot tell me that N'Keal Harry could not catch 50 balls with a better quarterback. He's not going to go to the end zone 8 times, but he could definitely get more catches with a guy like Alex Smith, who is an accurate passer. Get somebody who is accurate with the football and not throwing 5 touchdowns and 11 interceptions. We all agree that Jacoby Myers looks really impressive. Imagine if he had a guy like Matthew Stafford throwing him the ball. He might be able to reach Pro Bowl level. We don't know. He has had an abysmal passer at the quarterback position, but yet he has been one of the better players on the Patriots this season. And then don't also tell me that Jarrett Stidham is an option. There's no way he can be an option. You cannot not play him these next 2 games and then tell me he could be your starter next year. You seemingly have no faith in him this year. You can't tell me he's going to get better next year. I'm sorry. You cannot come to me with, we're now ready to give Jarrett Stidham the starting job. You should have done that like week 5 of this year if that was going to be the case. I think the Patriots are now at that point where they are now realizing why most of America and why most of Patriots fans were saying, don't move on from Tom Brady, because you become just another team. Every team is in search for a franchise quarterback. They are all part of this quarterback carousel. They go for guys like Ryan Fitzpatrick. They go for guys like Jameis Winston. They go for guys like Teddy Bridgewater. And for 2 decades, you were above all that because you had the greatest quarterback of all time. You won 6 Super Bowls. Yes, you had the greatest head coach ever as well, but your biggest advantage was each and every year you knew who the quarterback was going to be. There was no competition. There was no bad play from the position. There were no down seasons. Each and every year, this guy put up gigantic numbers, and then you moved on from him and you got a guy like Cam Newton who, at the very best, is average, and I think he's been far below average this season. They are now seeing what life is like for these other teams in this division. Before the Bills got Josh Allen, who looks like a franchise quarterback, they went through the carousel. They had guys like Ryan Fitzpatrick. The Jets had a guy like Ryan Fitzpatrick. They had Mark Sanchez. They had Geno Smith. And now they're struggling with Sam Darnold. The Dolphins. Think about all the different quarterbacks for the Dolphins. They had Tannehill, who is an above average quarterback, but they couldn't really contend. The Patriots had the biggest advantage of all. They had a Hall of Fame franchise quarterback, one of the best ever, if not the best ever. That was their big advantage, and I think they took that for granted, and now they're within the rest of the pack out there looking for mediocre quarterback play. Remember all the talk of Belichick can win with anyone? See, he won 11 games with Matt Castle in 2008. He won football games with Jimmy Garoppolo and Jacoby Brissett when Tom Brady got injured, and then he gets his time, he picks his guy, he picks Cam Newton, a former MVP, a guy who's gone to the Super Bowl, and they're about to go, 6-10, maybe 7-9, at best 8-8. That's the best you've got. You moved on from the GOAT, and you went and became a mediocre football team. The Patriots now have to realize the most important position in football is the quarterback position, and it's the position you never had any questions about. But now the biggest doubt about this football team's future is the quarterback position. It's not who the head coach is going to be. It's not the state of the franchise and the ownership. It's about the quarterback position. That's the biggest problem on this football team. It's not about the defense. It's not about the lack of weapons. It's about who will be throwing the ball for you each and every week. And for almost 2 decades, you had that answer. And now you're like any other football team in dire need of anyone who can be accurate with the football. I think the Patriots took for granted the fact that Tom Brady could make any no-name wide receiver and turn him into a 100-catch guy. And now Cam Newton can't even turn a guy like N'Keal Harry into a 50-catch guy. Think about that. I think they took all of that for granted. And it's fair that Tom Brady didn't really work with his young receivers at the end, but he turned a lot of no-name receivers like N'Keal Harry into Pro Bowl-type players, and Cam Newton cannot do the same. And the Patriots did not give that position the level of respect it deserved. It's one thing to let Gronk go and not to sign a tight end, even though they should have. It's another thing to lose your franchise quarterback and to not have the ideal replacement. It's almost like they accidentally walked in to signing Cam Newton. Here's $1 million. We know you're a former MVP and you've gone to a Super Bowl. We're just going to act like you're the old Cam Newton. He is nowhere near the old Cam Newton, and it's not his fault, but he is one of the biggest problems on this team. And the biggest concern about this team moving forward is the quarterback position. And I cannot have him play it for another season. It can't be Jarrett Stidham. This team needs to find their franchise quarterback, or they won't be going to another Super Bowl for a really long time. We are now in a place and time where the Bills have their franchise quarterback. The Dolphins might have just found theirs. The Jets might get Trevor Lawrence if they end up getting the number 1 overall pick. You might be the only team in the division that doesn't have a long-term answer at the quarterback position. Think about how much the tides have turned for the New England Patriots when they used to be the only team in the division that had the long-term answer at the position. I would also like to point out it's fair that when you lose Tom Brady, you have a down year. But what I think is unfair is that you don't have your long-term answer at the position. I would have been way okay if the Patriots went 8-8 with Jarrett Stidham at the position and we knew that they were going to try to develop this guy. But they brought in this veteran for no money at all, and they're not living up to where I think they should be as a team. They have no destination. There's nothing to look forward to right now with this team. There's no, next year he's going to get better, because I know he's not. I know Cam Newton probably won't even be with this team next year. Also, I have serious doubt in Bill Belichick's interest in finding a long-term quarterback. I just think he's looking for a short-term fix to win his 10-plus games next year, which sounds nice, but at some point, they are going to need a guy who you're like, yes, pencil that guy in for the next 5 to 10 years. And whether or not that's Matthew Stafford, whether or not that's Carson Wentz, that's a question that needs an immediate answer. And that answer needs to come within the next 2 or 3 years, or this Patriots team is going in a very bad direction. You don't want to be the only team in your division without a long-term answer at the quarterback position. Think about how many years you were easily able to win this division because you had the answer at the quarterback position. Bill Belichick can get as mad as he wants when reporters ask, what is your answer at the quarterback spot? For this year, he can get as mad as he wants, but for the long term, he better answer that question or he will be asked it every single day for as long as he is the Patriots coach until he has the next franchise quarterback for the New England Patriots. I'm not even asking him to find the next Tom Brady. I'm just asking him to find anyone at all. I also want to point out that the math looks easy. Find a young quarterback and find a star receiver, and you're probably going to have success. Look at DeAndre Hopkins and Kyler Murray. They got Murray, Hopkins, and now they look like a really good football team. Look at Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs. They have a young quarterback. They have a star receiver. Maybe if you think Jarrett Stidham is the answer, go out and pay a lot of money for a star receiver. It might be time for Bill to put more value into the most important position in football, the quarterback spot. Thanks for listening to this edition of the Head to Head Podcast. I'm Cam McKinney. There'll be a new episode of the podcast every Monday on Apple Podcasts and iTunes, so please rate, review, and subscribe.